got the barrel back on. Got some nice threads now on the 20-inch barrel. So you saw that earlier. I don't need to take that off, but just to have a cap on there just to make sure my clumsy ass doesn't ding up the threads that I cut, or on the adapter deal that's on the other threads. So yeah, we got threads on threads on threads here. But anyway, barrel went back on just like it should. So our flat is perfectly flat, indexed properly, torqued on real good. Got the hanger, fore-end hanger back on. So now it's time to put the guts back in. I mean, bear with me here. I got no guide to go on. There's no YouTube video, so that's why I'm making one. But this is kind of a weird backward sear, so it has to go back in trigger first. So this has to be in first, because you can see actually on the way these springs work, they can only really go this way. They can't go this way. What we got to do is just put this in real loose, just start it, because that goes all the way up in there like that. And we're not going to hold the sear back. We're just going to let it flop in the wind. So yeah, if you do have to take out that spring, it's really not hard. There's a spring around the pin for the sear itself, right there. And you can probably see the leg of the spring right there holding this guy in, and then the other leg's right there on the back of the sear. Right, so pretty straightforward. Okay, so you got to take your two hammer springs, and there's a little nipple on the one end. Those go into the strut capturing device here on the back. So you can put those in, and then you line it up where they go in the trigger assembly thing. And you see it's got to kind of pivot down right there, like that. Like that. Now, the hammer, it's a little cumbersome. The hammer has to be fully forward, so that means the lever's got to be kind of worked a little bit. Like that. And then, if this would cooperate with me. All right, there we go. Okay, so all that is kind of pre-assembled. Start the trigger housing up in there, just barely, enough to, because see, you've got to be able to push these hammer spring struts up inside where they go, where they want to go. And so the hammer is fully forward. And so you just kind of push and just kind of push it all up in there as one unit. Pretty sure. Kind of like that. Okay, so it's starting. Almost. There we go. Get it in. Get it in there. Something like that, and then definitely make sure you're not binding up against that. Okay. So you get it in there so it'll stay like that, and then with a non-marring hammer, so you can see where almost the back of the hammer there is almost binding, so we got to get this guy going up first. A little at a time. And once you get to a certain place, you can just push both of them up together, but we're fighting the spring pressure right now. All right, I think we're getting closer. Yep, okay. So you see everything now is just kind of going up in there like it's supposed to. There we go, okay. That is the trigger portion. Now, very important that you put the extractor ejector assembly back in with its little spring detent deal in there. And it's going to go in like this. Pull it back out a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Just get it kind of roughly positioned. And now you can just kind of wiggle and hold your mouth just right. There we go. And I kind of pulled back on the hammer, a little bit to kind of get that up where it needs to be. Okay, I just need this locking block to go up a little bit more. There we go. All right, now we just got to line this all back up. We're going to put the pin in temporarily for the trigger assembly. Okay, I've got a little taper punch. These are very helpful in reassembling things like this. So just as a pre-check, yeah, so I'm looking to make sure that hammer cocks. Yeah, so that's good. That is exactly what we want to see. The hammer is now cocked, held back, no pushing off, and it releases just fine. So let's get these other pins, the actual pins back in. This one here doesn't matter which way it goes back. Just hopefully it actually goes back. There it goes. All right, now before I drive that one in all the way, we'll do another function check. Beautiful. Awesome. All right, so there we go. See, that wasn't so bad. The Miroku guys made this a heck of a lot easier. So thank you, Japan, for not making this overly complicated. Very elegant, simple design. I'm actually very, very impressed with that. You would think there'd be a lot more plastic in there these days. And we've all heard, well, if you know anything about the 1885, you may have heard how horribly bad these were to take apart in the past. Everything went back together. Yay. My customer has requested a 12-inch length of pull, including the original butt pad, recoil pad-ish thing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to measure from the trigger face, so where your fingy is going to hit the trigger, to where that pad ends at 12 inches. And it's looking like 11.5 on the money. So we're just going to make a little mark at 11.5 inches. With a little fudge room to do this. I'll take a flexible straight edge and just make a line straight, square with the back of the original stock. Something for our saw to follow, like that. And so with that cut off, we'll just double check, measure twice. So we should be 11.5 there, which we are. And then with the pad, going the correct way, oops, the correct way, we should end up at 12, and that's looking good there. So we're gonna cut this off, sand it flat and square again, and reinstall this, and then shape this back down. I always love it when I get a chance to break out the old-timey woodworking tools. I'm going to be using some holdfasts here to hold that stock into place. So we'll use a cloth to protect the finish. So we're not going to clamp down super hard, but enough that we can hold this thing and saw it rigidly. I have to angle this slightly out. Yep. So holdfasts are very old, ancient woodworking tools that work on physics, basically. So when you pound this down, it kind of wedges the clamp, and it holds things fast. Hence the name. But we need to hold pretty tightly. I'm going to use my Japanese pole saw to cut a nice straight line here, ideally. I'm going to cut a little bit on this side of the waist, just to make sure I'm not screwing up too bad. So I'm just kind of eyeballing, making sure we're straight here. And these saws pull on cut on the pull stroke. We're going to start it with the fine teeth. Let's get a groove going. And just get a cut started. And then I'm going to tape up the back side so there's no split out, or at least try to avoid any splitting of the wood as the saw exits the cut. Okay, now I'll use a little bit more aggressive teeth just to get most of the majority of it cut off. Okay, we're close to the end of the cut. So let's switch back to fine teeth. So that'll sand right out, and it's pretty good flat square cuts with that Japanese pull saw, so that went well. Now we'll finish it with the belt sander and reattach we'll have to re-drill holes for the butt pad, but that's no big deal. Next thing we got to do is tacticalize this forend with a Picatinny rail. And I know some of you are going to be gasping for air because this is committing blasphemy here, but like I always say, I give the customer what they want, and this is what they want, so that's what we're going to do. Right? So, what the deal here is this is for an M-lock style tactical attachment device, and we need to mount it to a radiused wooden forearm. So we got to modify this guy a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to deck off all this stuff, deck that off, and try to match this radius as best as we can. I've got a special cutter for that, but the first thing we're going to do is use a 1/2-inch end mill carbide, and like I said, just deck this down flat. Then we'll get that other core box bit. It's a core box bit. I use it a lot for inletting stocks because it's got a nice, it's basically got a radius, it's a big radius cutter. So it's good for barrel channels and stuff like that. But this, I think it'll work. It's almost identical radius here, so we're going to try that. And as long as I don't go too crazy hog wild on it, it will cut aluminum. I've mistakenly cut sling swivel studs and things like that using it before, so it shouldn't be a problem. So anyway, let's get this pick rail in there and get the rail in the vise and do that first operation. So for that, we're going to be using a 1/8 by 1 3/8 inch set of parallels to hold the part up in the vise and keep it parallel with the cutter. And the vise has been cleaned. So shed a little light on this. And then typical, you're gonna want to make sure the parallels are flat against the vise jaws, and then kind of feel that, make sure it's not moving as you're tightening up the vise. And we don't need a lot of pressure here. It's a 6-inch vise like this holds the part extremely tightly, and you don't have to crank down on it real hard. So anyway, let's see here. I'm gonna have to touch off on the top and establish a starting point. And up here is my 0 stop for the spindle. So this stops the spindle from going down any further. And then I'm going to give it a couple thousandths higher than that, just so we're not digging prematurely into the part as we encounter it and approach it. So we're going to trade out parallels 1 step up. Because it just occurred to me, I want to find the center of this part. When I carve that radius, I want to be right in the middle. So a little bit higher parallels will give me the opportunity to use an edge finder and touch off on the side and get our spindle right in the middle. And this still provides plenty of clamping force for the part to be machined. Now we have to re-establish our 0 on the Z-axis because the part is moved. So you can see we'll have to reset that by a little bit. And I'm not going to need DRO for this. Well, yeah, we will actually. We could use the hand dials, but I've got a DRO, so I'm going to use it. So come down, and we probably will be contacting the part. And what I'm going to do is cut in this direction. Okay, we're not contacting. So what I'm doing is the tool spins clockwise, and we'll be pushing in any sort of burr that might be in there. And come on to the other side, same thing, we're pushing the burr into the part, if there is one. Oops. All right, now we're gonna come off. We're gonna raise our table a little bit. So I wanna deck this flat. Let's come up about 10 thousandths. I don't need much. So now this is gonna cut that entire surface flat. Which I'm sure it was before, but so there we go. We got milled off all those M-lock features, and we have a perfectly flat part in relation to our milling machine table here. So now we've got that operation done. We're going to switch over the cutters to the core box bit. So machine is off. Go ahead and uninstall this cutter. And the box bit takes the same collet. So here is the box end cutter. Sorry, core box bit. Yeah, I never get that name right. Again, like I use this for like barrel channels a lot, but it does seem to match that radius pretty close. It's not perfect, but it's better than putting a flat part on a round part like this. Before we put the core box bit, whatever the heck it's called, before we put that cutting tool into the spindle, we're going to use something called an edge finder to establish a center line on the part. 1/2 inch edge finder, 1/2 inch collet. And so we're going to come in with this wiggly bit on the end, and touch off on the side, one of the two sides there. And then once we get that, we'll zero out our DRO, measure the part, divide by 2, and then bring the table into that value. And the edge finder likes to spin at 1,000 RPM, so I'm going to flip it on and crank it down real quick because we're ripping fast right now for it. $1,000. I'm going to offset the head of that thing by a little bit. So now it's kicked off. We're going to zero out our y-axis. And my friend over at Glenn Now, check out Glenn Now's YouTube channel. He taught me this little trick. You want to verify your zero. He always said, like, people ask me why my parts are always so precise. It's because he doesn't rush this process. So it's kicked off. We're at 2/10. Zero that. And come in until this repeats. And it's all about finesse and feel. And there we go. So we're repeating at 0. Shut that off. We're done with that tool. Then we're going to give it 100 thousandths to split the difference on the wiggly bit. Re-zero. Now we've got our center line of the spindle is now established to the very edge of that part. Okay, so we're going to measure our part. 610 thousandths of an inch. Divided by 2, it's going to be 305. So 610 divided by 2, pretty easy math, 305. So we're going to crank that table in, 305 thousandths. And 1/10. Okay, now we could re-zero this at this point, just in case we've got to move the table or something. I could change it to incremental, but I'm just visually checking here. So yeah, that looks centered. Now we're going to lock up our y-axis. I don't want to change that. So it's locked. So if I bump this, it won't move. We need our x-axis for the travel of the tool. Then I'm going to touch off, just like we did with the end mill. Lock this up. Raise it up, move it off the part. Raise it back, lower it back down. Hard to say on this one. Let's give it 20 or 25 thousandths. So we'll zero that. 25, why not? It's aluminum. Safety squints. Yeah, that's cutting good. And giving us a nice radius there to properly mount this on that fore end. All right, that's about halfway down. Let's give it another 25, so I'll go to 50. Just kind of guessing here. Let's go up a little more, 75. Let's make sure we're not cutting the thing in half. Okay, we could probably check it at this point. So we can take it out of the vise. If we need to put it back in, again, this isn't like super precision here. Okay, so now we got a nice little radius on there. Let's see if it fits. Okay, didn't really match the, didn't work out like I was hoping. So, again, it's better than nothing, but I do have a bigger bit. Maybe we'll try that. Yeah, it's definitely making that radius much bigger, obviously. All right, so we're just gonna check it here again. Not gonna deepen that anymore. Yeah, that's better. It's not perfect, but it's less of a gap. And so yeah, it's about the best we could do for now. I might have a piece of material. What I could do is maybe I could put a piece of sandpaper on this and just kind of sand it down. Then you're risking scratching the nice brand new fore end. So I'll try to see if I got a piece of other scrap material that is pretty close to this and try to get that radius a little bit closer. It's really not too bad. But anyway, switch out for now and come back for, we do have to drill 2 holes through this fore end as well. So we could get that done at this point. Okay, we've got the fore end installed in the vise. The fore end is not flat, it kind of tapers down, so I've got to kind of shim it. And this operation, just drilling a couple of holes, doesn't require a ton of force. You know, we're drilling straight down right through the middle. There's no. All we got to do is hold it so it doesn't shift at all, you know, so cardboard, shims, blah, blah, blah. And with wood, there's really no precise way to find an edge or anything like that. So this is pretty much all by eye. I put the rail section down and I wanted it between the two mounting screws. So I kind of measured that, got that as close to centered as possible. And then I just scribed out 2 little circles for the hole locations. And again, it's wood. If we need to shift it, adjust it a little bit, a little file in there and whatever. It's all going to be covered by this. I'm going to get it as close as possible, obviously, but just want to make, you know, this is kind of a by eye method here. That's why I got my magnifiers on here. So I just get the tip of the tool as close down there as possible without touching the wood and align the table so that it's pretty much there. So I've got a center drill in there. We're just going to make a little divot for the drill bit. Just like that. Yeah, so the screw is actually 135-ish, 133, whatever. So we're going to use a drill bit slightly bigger than that, probably 150. Number 25 drill bit. Switch this out and poke a hole right through it without moving. So let's just, for good measure, 0 or DRO. Need a little more pressure on the vise. So there's our first hole. Let's check it with the screw. Oops, that's not the right screw. Dear. So these, I'm an idiot. I used the wrong screw. That's the 4-end mounting screw. These are the screws for the rail, which are bigger. So yeah, we're gonna need a little bit bigger drill bit. Jeez. So let's measure that. You know, you can always make a hole bigger. So luckily we just got to make it bigger. So 185. I crack myself up sometimes. 185. We're going to go bigger than that. Let's go with a number 9. That'll make it approximately 10 thousandths larger. May need it bigger. We'll find out. So luckily I didn't move anything. It's always good to check these things. Before you move your setup. Okay, we're still there. Make hole bigger. Check fit. Okay. Now we can try that. Okay, and with that screw in, the other hole lines up just perfectly. So we will come over here, make our second hole, and make another hole. Just like before, we're going to check this before we take anything out. There we go. We got, it fits, and there's a little bit of adjustment room. Okay, took it out of the vise. And, you know, it's that's where it's going to sit. I'm happy with that. But flipped it over, and look at that. Screws are too short. They do not protrude through that channel. So we got 2 options here. Well, several options, I suppose, but we go to the hardware store, try to find longer screws. But then it occurred to me that this gets mounted onto a fore-end hanger underneath the barrel. So right there, this guy gets mounted, 2 screws onto this, which is now making me think if I have nuts that are protruding in there, that's probably going to conflict with the mounting of the fore-end here. So I think the best course of action here is to actually countersink the wood. So the nuts for those screws are these M-lock things. So the screws screw into those. And for an M-lock system, that's perfect. However, this is not an M-lock system. So what's going on? So you can see here, the screws into the nut. Plenty of material to sandwich between the two. So if I cut a countersink in that wood, that will kind of act like an M-lock in that if I make it a slot, you see the M-lock is rectangular kind of in shape. If I make it a slot, that will actually prevent the nut from turning. So it's going to clear the fore-end hanger and give the nut something to kind of butt up against as you're turning the screws in. So I think this is a win-win-win. You know, a lot of times when I don't think things through like this, it bites me in the butt, but this time I think it's going to work out great. The wood is about 400 thousandths thick, so if I countersink, this is 150. So if I go down about 150, enough to get the screw to bite and pull down and kind of compress into that wood with it. Obviously I don't want to split it, but I think this is going to good. This is going to go good. And we're going to find out, gosh darn it. So what we got to do is flip the handguard over upside down. So now we're going to be working in here to cut those countersinks. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill to carve out a little pocket or a countersink, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so we're going to zero out all these axes. And it's not the best idea to hold an end mill and a drill chuck, but for this we'll be fine. Set a stop on our spindle because we do not want to go all the way through here. So we've touched off on the floor of that fore-end, zeroed, or set our spindle stop, and we've zeroed our Z, which is the table up and down. So I'm going to bring the table up 100 thousandths. About 100 thousandths. You can see it. All right, so we're going up 100 thousandths, right? And then we want to waller out. So we'll go plunge down, and then we'll waller out the length of this thing. $440 thousandths. So we'll go 450 for a little fudge room. So we want 450 width in order to accommodate that nut. Kick it on, plunge down, double check, yep, we're right in the middle of that hole. And then 100 thousandths left to right. There's 100 thousandths. And there's 100 thousandths there. All right, that looks good. gear it up. Turned out real good. Looks as good as I can get it here. But yeah, we slapped a little bit of bedding in there to take up the little gap and give this just a little more strength, because it's gonna be used for a bipod, maybe a tripod, I don't know, but you know, yeah, just give it a little extra strength. You saw what we had to do in there. And the wood, I don't know, it's about 250 to 300 thousandths thick, but you know, a little extra reinforcement never hurt anything. Oh, and by the way, that rail is made by Kinetic Development Group. I don't know, founded on Brownells. Made in the USA, so that's pretty good. So that's what that section was. Very affordable. I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but very reasonably priced rail section. Obviously, it took some serious modification to work in this application, but that's what I'm for. That's what I do. But let's reattach this forend to the rifle. So the forend's just held in by these tiny little screws, which happen to be metric, which is just great. Because the first thought I was having with this rail was to use one of these existing holes to mount it to, you know, to just cinch it down. But this screw is probably proprietary because it's some kind of weird M 3.5 by 0.6, I think is what it was when I measured it, which doesn't exist. Okay, put it back in its little hole. Screw that in. Snugged up. Doesn't need to be too tight. But yeah, that is done. So I think I showed you this. There's the shortened up buttstock, and the pad has been nicely shaped back down to the smaller stock. The barrel's been shortened and threaded and adapted. So we got one more piece of this puzzle, and then we could ship it off to our customer up in Cody. We're waiting on a rail here. All right, final piece of this Winchester 1885 job has arrived. It is absolutely not from a company called Murphy Precision, so don't look them up if you're looking for a rail section, because it's not from them, not from Murphy Precision YouTube algorithm. So in the box, oh, look at that. We got some Jelly Bellies. I am not a fan of that, so that is going to go to the customer. And then in here, we've got look at that, a Picatinny rail. This is not a firearm part at all. All this is an accessory mounting bracket for things completely nothing to do with firearms at all. Okay? So looks like a Picatinny rail, but it's not at all. Okay, so let's look at that. Apparently they actually make these to order, which is kind of cool. So this was specially made just for this tool here. Let's get this knot knife out to open this package, and we'll have a little closer look here. Very nice. Some Murphy Precision, 20 MOA, stainless, something, 1885. Very nice machined part. Got some heft to it. Let's see how it fits. Oops, let's go ahead and put it on the correct way. Yeah, look at that. So it comes with, looks like extra screws in the event that you may lose one. Well, yeah, you get 2 extra screws in there. Get a whole bunch of extra screws here. You get 2 shorts. And then 4 long ones. 3 long. Okay. Wait a minute. Yeah. I was going to say, I thought I saw 6. So we'll use the short screws for right there. Long screws for up here. Stick that in. So we'll just do a quick test fit here. Make sure we're going all the way down. Sometimes screws need a little modification, maybe, sometimes. Could be, possibly. Make sure everything lines up, bottoms out, etc. Okay, that one tightens all the way down just fine. So does that one. And that one does. And that one does. Okay, so don't need to alter the screws at all. So now we're just going to back them all the way back out so we can apply a little bit of blue Loctite. Okay, so that's off of there. Now I'm going to just give it a good little squirt of acetone here. Just to make sure we're thoroughly degreased. So that nothing conflicts with the Loctite. Add a little drop of Loctite to each hole. And a little to each screw. And then proceed to not assemble this. There are no instructions with this, so I'm just going to torque them down to 25 inch-pounds. It's pretty common for Torx bits of this size. Alrighty, and there we go. Okay. Now we can go ahead and reattach to the fore end. And there she be. These are nice looking rifles, I gotta admit. So there you go. The Winchester, or should I say the Miroku Winchester 1885. Tacticooled out with not 1 but 2 Picatinny rails. We've got a shortened barrel with a half 28 muzzle thread with a 5/8 24 adapter and a thread protector. And a shortened buttstock, cut off 1 inch and reinstalled the original pad here, shaped it back down. And that's all we did to it. So yeah, complete customization of this Winchester 1885. Just thought that might be kind of interesting to see for you. So that's about it for that. Like I said, everything works. I wish I had some 6 Creedmoor. I have 1 round. I could go shoot 1 round, I suppose. Maybe I'll do that. It'd be nice to make sure this thing actually fires before I ship it out to Cody. Okay, well, I guess I'll do that. No, probably won't video record it, so sorry. It's freezing out. Single digits outside, snow all over the place. I don't feel like dragging the camera out there, and I'll probably drop it in the snow. So anyway, this is Jeff Montgomery from Accurate Rifles and Restorations in Casper, Wyoming. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. That really helps us out. So we can keep making these exciting, entertaining videos for y'all. Hit the bell notification if you want to be notified of new videos to be released to you in the future. Other than that, thank you very much again, and we'll see you on the next one.